The urgency of now. In the book Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy, author Eric Metaxas brings us together in a marvelous tapestry of events and documents to tell us the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's life. Bonhoeffer lived at a critical hour of the church, just moments before Adolf Hitler's rise to power in Germany through the Third Reich. Confusion was amongst the people and division was across the land. As a Christian man, he sought to bring a sounding horn to all the people of the church to be able to wake up, to bring theology, clarity to the people. And there was so much confusion that it divided all of Germany. Let's don't fall to the same trap of confusion and division. Let's learn from Bonhoeffer. Take a look. Be sure to subscribe and press alert to get new notifications of new success secrets made available on VFN TV. Talk to you today about a simple statement, something that we need to get so inside of us, and it's called the urgency of now. I mean, it's so important because there comes a point in time where something is about to happen, something is about to take place, and so often that those that are adversarial, those that are threatening, those that say they're going to do these terrible things, horrible things, or have horrible plans. So many people just automatically believe that that's going to happen. But the truth is, there's an urgency of now for us to be able to stand up and begin to do what God has called us to do in this day. We're so excited about our new book, I Will Fight, Strategies for Your Success. You got to have a strategy and you got to fight. It's not about a physical fight, but you got to fight. And guess what? If you fight, you win. You'll be successful. This book is about transforming your thoughts, about what your beliefs, the decisions that you're making, about speaking. What you say is so powerful, and what you do, what you're saying, your actions you take. And quitting, don't quit. Listen, success and failure quite often is just 5 more minutes. And finally, think about this. So many people talk about you should do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. And look what they're doing. They're not doing nothing. You can't let people tell you you should do this. As a matter of fact, they can't be putting their should on you. This is so important. Listen, we want to bless you with your free copy of I Will Fight, Strategies for Your Success. You can get it at vfnkb.com. That's vfnkb.com. Get your free copy today. Do you know that God loves you? God's got a plan for your life, and that He has good things in store, but we have to actually lock in to our awesome, merciful, loving, and kind God. We have to seek Him while He may be found. But He wants us to do that, over and over again. I don't know if you've gone to our particular partners area, but we have a great area there for everybody that's a partner. It's a simple thing to be able to become a partner. Just go to vfntv.com, click on partner, you can find out how. But it's about positioning yourself to be able to receive from God. King Jehoshaphat understood the urgency of now. He had a report that somebody was coming in, and they were coming in to destroy God's people, destroy Israel. And he didn't know what to do. They were stronger than him, more powerful than him, had more resources than he had, and it was a done deal. As a matter of fact, somebody came and told him that they'll be here within 24 hours, something of that nature. And so he goes to God and he cries out, God, what do you want me to do? He sought the Lord, and the Lord has revealed to him that you've made some bad decisions. There's some things that you've done. Some things that you've done that really have disappointed me, son, basically. And God revealed that to him so he could repent for it. And what he did, he made some bad alliances. He made some bad connections, some bad partnerships. He partnered with nations. He partnered with leaders that he should have not partnered with, even those who professed to be walking with God. Because what it was a partnership with another king, a king of Israel, but a king that was in rebellion to God. So just because someone says they're with God, but they're openly in rebellion to God, we have to be careful in those kind of alliances. But understand, when he found that out, all God wanted him to do was to repent. That's it. And begin to say, you know what? The urgency of now, listen, it was counting down. Think about it. In 24 hours, this is going to be happening. In 24 hours, he has to seek God. He has to hear what God says. He has to incorporate the plans of God. He has to communicate the plans of God to the people. And the people have to believe the God who gave the plans and follow the leadership which God has established. And then they had to march out in total faith that God was going to do what he said he's going to do. And he said, the battle's not yours. The battle's the Lord's. The victory will be yours if you follow the plan of God. And God was shifting things back to where he got the glory and the credit for who he is. He's God. I mean, think about it. He's creator of the universe. He's the one that gave his son that we might be forgiven and, all of our sins and brought into the family of God and to be heirs of God and joint heirs with Jesus Christ. I mean, think about that. I mean, he's holding everything together. And if we lose track and we turn to alliances and wrong partnerships and against the plans and the will of God, then we have to say, you know what, God, you're right. I'm sorry, God. I forgive me for that. But also the nation needs to see. The church needs to see. Those who profess to be Jesus Christ's sons and daughters, the Christian Christ followers need to see us as the church and leaders in the church to be able to say, you know what? We made bad alliances. We turned to government. We did this, we did that. But the truth is, God was enough. We didn't need to add to God. We didn't need to add to God to the point that it cost us $1.3 million per baptized believer, according to George Bonner and his statistics. That we turned to money instead of turning to God, when Jesus plainly told us that we can't serve God and money. We have to make up our mind. That 97%, according to George Bonner, of regular church attenders no longer honor God with their finances, with tithes and offerings. And we can say, God, that was wrong. I want to honor you. You are Jehovah Jireh. You are our provider. The work of our hands is only blessed because you bless the work of our hands. It's a turning back to God. And it's in understanding the rant and the rave of the enemy. They have nothing up on God. They have nothing up on God at all. God is getting our attention, saying, will we turn back to him? Does he have our attention? I was speaking just recently to someone in law enforcement about, in law enforcement, when you're, and I was a former law enforcement officer, so I'm speaking from experience, but when they use what's called minimum force necessary. When they ask you to do something verbally, you're expected to do what they ask you to do. And then if you don't do that particular thing they ask you to do, they escalate to the next lowest level. For example, they may give you a verbal command that says, drop the knife. And you could just drop the knife. Or they may say, put your hands behind your back so I can cuff you. But if you don't do that, there's going to be a next level of intensity that the officer has to measure out and say, okay, I'm going to talk with a louder voice. Drop the knife. And if you don't drop it, then they say, listen, I have this gun. And if you don't, if you don't drop that knife, you're in a danger. You need to drop the knife. And if you make any overt action towards anyone, and then it escalates all the way to the point where if I can't use a stun gun, if I can't do this, all of a sudden he's going to have to shoot this particular man who comes after him or a citizen with a knife. But he could have dropped the knife and dropped the knife. He could have dropped the knife when when the officer says, just drop the knife. God is saying, he's so merciful. This is nothing compared to what, if we don't turn, what it's going to be like. I mean, this is nothing. There is an urgency of now for us to say, wait a minute. He's telling us, drop the knife. Things are escalating. Our first ISIS attack, is in Texas. You have to understand Texas if you've never been to Texas before. I mean, the very fact of happening in the Lone Star State, a state that knows who they are and that stands up for their constitutional rights and their state constitution. I mean, it's amazing that it's taking place there. The first Sharia-like court is taking place in Texas. We need to these are like warnings. God's saying, okay, this is what's happening. According to Kamal Salim with Kum Ministries, he's talking about, an estimated of 450,000 radical jihadists have crossed our borders. Well, they just said on the news last night, reportedly, that the ISIS is taking credit for this particular, according to the AP poll, Associated Press, that taking credit for this attempt on American citizens in Garland, Texas. And then they're saying, hey, we have them all over the country. And they even name 5 specific states. These are like early warnings for us to go, you know what? I'm going to drop the knife. I'm going to drop the idol. I'm going to honor you, God. This is the urgency of now. This is so important for us to be able to respond, which means we just got to begin to move in that direction. We're going to talk today about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, or Bonhoeffer, depending on who you're talking to about that. But this man was amazing how he looked at things. We're going to look at our country and how our country is being, organized in this fashion, in a systematic way, but in a way that is almost like minimum force necessary. At some point in this process, we can just go, God, like Jehoshaphat, dear God, we see that we're going to be destroyed if we don't turn to you. God, we see that we're going to lose this freedom that we have if we don't turn to you. God, we see that we're going to lose our economy if we don't honor you with the economy that you entrusted to us, our finances. God, we see, you said, every nation divided against itself won't stand. I mean, think about that. And we're divided. Everything that can be divided, it seems, has been divided. And we're going to talk about that, but we can be like Jehoshaphat. We can understand the urgency of now and begin to respond to it. And this is like that clarion call. We got to rise up and don't look and go, yeah, they need to do something about it. It's us. We need to do something about it. And one way they can do it is say, you know what, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to pray for, and I'm going to partner with VFN TV. Every single month, I'm going to prayerfully and financially partner with VFN TV. I am going to be a sponsor and join all the sponsors, and I'm going to visit those sponsors. But not only that, I'm going to get in the streets. I'm going to go to my gatherings or my church gatherings, and I'm going to say, even if you have to be the Dietrich Bonhoeffer amongst your fellowship, and just go, you know what, this ain't right. We have to turn back to God. We've all sinned, but we have a forgiving God, and he can actually forgive every one of us and restore us just like he did Israel. More when we get back from the break. This is the urgency of now, John. I mean, this is that moment. And the thing about if we don't understand the urgency of now, you know, I mean, if you tally it all up and you think about the urgency of now, that the reason why you have to say that is because the people don't understand the urgency, right? The urgency of the time. And it's real crazy. I mean, you know, some people's survival technique is just to take some sleeping pills and pass out and wake up in 30 days.
Let me know how it worked out.
You know, right? I'm going to intoxicate myself with entertainment. I'm going to intoxicate myself with movies. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's all you're doing.
Right.
You know, that imagine going straight from, you know, watching some Dolby dual sound, we call it big theater, IMAX movie theater with the biggest, nicest, freshest popcorn and people waiting on you, you know, hand and foot, people waiting on you hand and foot, and going from there to chemical showers and to ovens and to the grave. I mean, that's how it works. In fact, when you look at history, there's one thing you can learn from history is it repeats itself, which is great because it's hard enough for us to have repeated history and to wake up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like if we had new history, oh my goodness. Yeah. It just comes with different names, you know, different looks, different concepts in regards to using the same principles that Lucifer used in the very beginning. And but it's interesting how repetitive it is. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, of all the people that said that was the wisest man on the face of the earth outside of Jesus Christ, which was Solomon. I mean, he asked God for wisdom. And so many things the Lord is revealing right now. And you hear about end times and you hear about, you know, the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, and then Daniel had to actually have the dream before he would actually know what it was. And God revealed to him the dream, and the dream was specifically, you know, about what's going to happen in the future. Which all of that, but one pretty much has happened, and now it's in history. This last kingdom that's going to bring great trouble to the face of the earth is this kingdom of, it's made of iron and clay. You know, iron and clay. And I can't help but think, and especially what the Lord is revealing to me, is that you know, this Islamism, you know, this radical Islam is much stronger than the theories of their other counterpart of that prophecy, where people are going, oh, it's going to be such and such. I'm not going to say what people said it's going to be for years. And the truth is, I mean, even the smartest man will look at you every now and then and go, I didn't see that coming. Every man knows a part, prophesies a part. Every one of us, definitely including God. So we you know, verify everything in God's word that we're saying and go with what God says. But we hope to provoke you to begin to think, and we just wanted to get right into this today to understand that you know, God has shown me some things that I'm leaning strongly right now towards, that this radical form of Islam, or Islamization, they call it, or something of that nature, which means, you know, they want the caliphate to be the ultimate rule, versus the Muslim who is, you know, just basically under the Constitution of America, and it's totally different folks. It's not the same kind, and but they're quiet. But they're quiet. So, you know, in that and by the way, I just heard reportedly, I'm hearing feedback in my ears, but reportedly the Congress is saying this. Congress is reportedly saying this. The reason why we're not saying something and doing something is because the church is silent.
Wow.
If the church would wake up and stand up and support us, we would do it. But they're not supporting us. You know why? Everybody's trying to save themselves. Everybody's saying we got to just get through this. And now we have elections coming up, and people are going like, all we need is a
good person in
the
there.
right just man.
Yeah.
And that's what they thought, with Germany. They thought, this democracy thing is not happening, so we just need the right man. And guess what? There was this man who went from being imprisoned and jailed for his actions to running for office in Germany. And they had a democracy, but they weren't used to democracies. They were used to a king. They were used to, the czar that would just say, this is how it's going to go. And so they got democracy after World War I, the Weimar Republic. And they thought all the debating, and we got to learn how to move in a democracy. Because a democracy is you share your opinion. You call your congressperson, your senator, and you show up at an event and you go, I understand you feel this way. This is how I feel. And I know that we have 61% of us that feel this way.
Right.
And we want you to represent the majority of what's going on. They were uncomfortable with that, according, to this autobiography by Eric McTaxis called Bonhoeffer. You got to get this. This is like a reading for all of us, every one of us. We need to read it and understand we are in those days. And that they just thought, let's just chaos. It's confusing. It's just radical. We just need one person that can just, and that's what they were used to. They were used to dictatorships. They were used to a king, a czar, that type of thing. And so they gave up democracy. The parliament, the Weimar parliament voted their own death. Hitler ran. Hitler made it. They really believed that this guy was going to provide for them jobs. They were going to, this stuff about jobs, it's not the government's job to provide us jobs. When the government provides us jobs, it looks a lot like Joseph and the Jews, and it looks like Pharaoh in Egypt. When the government begins to provide jobs, 20%, John, the reports are 20% of the people in Baltimore are employed by the U.S. government.
Really?
20%.
It's huge.
That's huge.
It's huge.
And that's proof positive that federal employment is not the answer to peace.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so we're going to talk about that we're in those days. And democracy is a messy thing. Democracy is it doesn't look like it's all going to work out, but you got to share your opinion. So you have a lot of people sharing their opinions, and the moment people start telling people you can't share your opinion, you cannot say what's on your heart, you cannot speak the truth, whatever the truth is to you. The moment we say that, we've entered into a realm. The First Amendment is there for us in the U.S. Constitution so that we can keep our democracy. The moment you can't speak, whether it's by force or fear, the moment you fail to speak is the moment we lose our democracy. It's the moment we lose it. We can't just hold on, because the people that really are speaking they're not the majority. They're just the loudest people.
You've said this for so long that, you can be ignorant in a blessed land for a long time. And I think that a lot of people we're so blessed that they're not even paying attention. They're taking off the responsibility and allowing somebody else to think for them, to vote for them, to make decisions for them, to decide what they need to do. And so they're just kind of watching it all play out instead of actively being engaged and being a part and taking responsibility. Of course, when it goes down, then they'll blame someone else.
And we don't use the word they, because we are they. There's only us. I know what you're saying, though.
Right.
Because it's us, and we're trying to do our best in
Sure.
the context of that. But Dietrich was talking to the church and talking to the people. And he's trying to be so careful because they wanted to partner with the Fuhrer. And Fuhrer means leader, by the way. So Hitler began to change the whole concept of that. But they just felt he was a political man. They thought that he had some great ideas. They didn't like all of his ideas. But listen, if in fact 90% of the ideas of the leader choice that you're choosing is something you agree with, and 10% is Satan, you dump the 90%. Right. If you're eating a brownie, come on. If you're eating a brownie, you go, man, this brownie's good. And somebody says, well, 99% of that is chocolate, flour, butter, and everything. But there's 1% of it that comes from my dog in the backyard. You're going to chunk it.
That's right.
But for some reason, we're Americans, especially people in the church, are choosing leaders that there is, even Satan comes as an angel of light. He says, no wonder they call his servants, call his those that follow him servants of righteousness. I mean, it's going to come. Satan comes as an angel of light. So it's not the fact that somebody doing something good. It's the fact that, is it God? You know, is it God? Is there fruit there in the context of that? And so they were buying into Hitler, thinking he was a good choice. And this is prior. They're still months away from the camps. They're months away from the closing of the businesses. And so what Hitler had to do, he had to begin to divide everybody. He had to begin to polarize everybody, which means separate them. If you look at history, some of the techniques he learned, it came from, reports are from, Goebbels comes from America, and the concept with Woodrow Wilson and how he began to use propaganda. And that's a big thing that Hitler used, was propaganda during his reign of terror. But it began, people didn't know. They didn't realize that in a few months that he was going to take the Christian Bible out of the Christian church, or the church, if you call it that, the people that are partnering with him, because the church wanted to connect with him. They thought, this is what they thought, John. They thought that if we don't agree with everything he's doing, but if we get into the inner circle, we'll have influence over him. And so
we're not seeing that now.
And Dietrich's going, well, you don't. It's the devil. You don't partner with the devil. Hitler was, totally 100% a devil's puppet, And so in that, he's talking to them, and they're just not hearing the fact you cannot do this. And then they had a paragraph, that Hitler wanted approved. It was called the Aryan paragraph. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was part of the Church Reformation, who really got born again in Haarlem as well, but and went back to Germany to be part of the German Reformation. But the paragraph, the Aryan, think about that, the Aryan paragraph. And the Aryan paragraph said, basically, since the church is nationalized now, and that's a big thing, nationalized, and we'll talk about that in a moment, that you have to agree to this Aryan paragraph, which means the Jews cannot be in a Messianic Jew, a Jew who's decided to, follow Jesus as the Messiah and has been baptized and is part of the church, that you cannot recognize them as that. And so the national merged Hitler version, and you understand, they don't have the privilege of history like we're looking back at what happened after they did that. So now we're obligated to stand before God and say, we knew what would happen after this. And so anyway, the national church said, listen, this is what we'll do. This is what we'll do. They're our brothers. They're Christians. But for us to continue moving on with this new leader, we just need to have the Jewish Christian church where they come together and they meet, and then we'll have the German Christian church.
Wow.
And so everything's fine. We still love them, but we can't meet together because of the Aryan paragraph. Well, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's going, hello, there's no longer a Jew. There's no longer a Gentile. There's no longer a slave or free, a male or female. We're all one. You cannot reject the Jewish man. And he has the privilege, by the way. Dietrich has the privilege of understanding, because this is coming in the presence of and after America had done this to the African American. He was in Haarlem, and he was shocked in Haarlem when he was there how the American people treated their own citizens, and how they segregated them, and how they set them apart, and how they persecuted them. And that the pastor in Haarlem who led him to the Lord is going like, please let the world know about what's happening here. And then Hitler comes after that, America. After that. And so these things that are learned, you think about that. It's like, it's just Satan, manifesting. So he's talking, he said, I can't sign this, approve of this Aryan paragraph. And this is the thing, this is kind of where we're headed. And we're going to talk about that, because you first have to divide before you conquer. And so it'll start making sense when you're seeing what's taking place in society today, why every single thing is being bad, and the only thing that's being good is something like radical Islam or the Muslim Brotherhood. Is like, that is the evil thing, and the thing that you're calling evil is good. Kind of sounds familiar, don't it? You think about what's taking place in regards to, you're wondering, everything that can be attacked has been attacked verbally. It's been attacked with accusations made against it. Starting with the very beginning with the Constitution. You think about, and you have to first, you got to, find out and go to VFNTV.com and go to the Torch about children, organizers of the night versus organizers of the day. Do due diligence, find out what this is. But These are Saul Alinsky tactics, rules for radicals that are being used, but it's something that Lucifer used since the beginning. How you know that? The author himself, the mentor of our president and Hillary Clinton, dedicated the book to the first one that used the tactics. And so, so part of those tactics are, you got to take what is good and what presently people trust in, and you got to begin to target it. You got to begin to criticize it. You got to begin to get people. It says things like, if you repeat a lie long enough, people believe it. And all you got to do is just keep saying these words, and just people just begin to buy into it. And you ask people how they know stuff, they'll say stuff like, well, nobody's asked me that. They told 20 people. And you find out they just happened to overhear it when somebody else was telling somebody else. And they never asked someone, what's the source of that? And that's what we tried. Everything we tried to do by God's grace is to provide for you a source. So when you're talking to someone, you can go to vfntv.com, go to the torch, and look at the bottom of each segment, each program that we've had, and we give you articles, newspapers, videos of where we're gathering this information at, so you can speak with intelligence, or at least help you begin a research to understand how we came about that.
Sure. And
that's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer had. His family were highly intelligent. They were actually, they were his families, his parents and all that, they were atheists. But he, long story short, he got into ministry for profession, but it wasn't until he got to Harlem, New York, that he came into the kingdom, it looks like, and gave his life to the Lord. And so things are being divided. And if you remember, some of the things that was first said was, the Constitution is really an outdated document. It's a list of negative rights. And we need, in other words, it's like there's some more rights that you need to get, versus the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence says all our rights come from God, not government. But that whole argument began to cause people to begin to think, yeah, we need the government to give us some more rights. It's like they never gave us any to begin with. We are the people who does that. And it says very specifically that we believe that all of our rights come from God. That's what the documents say. So the government doesn't give us rights, but we as the people decide this is what we want as a law. But in regards to our personal rights, they come from God. And somehow people just begin to think, that's right. We need the government, to the point, that people are turning to government for everything, right?
So true. You keep looking at that and you start saying, wait a minute. And again, we need to look back at our original founding documents and find out what happened. There were 27 reasons why they wrote
Not
out.
just one.
Not just one.
It's not just taxation without representation.
27 reasons.
Right.
And read these documents. And I remember when reading it for the first time, because a lot of this stuff...
tyranny was one of the biggest reasons.
Yeah.
Busting into your houses, searching you without a reason, all these things that are happening now.
And it's happening now. You're talking about that's the Fourth Amendment, that protects against illegal searches and seizures. They were looking to put a stamp tax on everything that you owned at the time, and it's just completely unfair.
Well, yeah, the First Amendment's being attacked. The First Amendment gives you the right to be able to say whatever you're going to say. It gives you the right to preach or talk about, Jesus all you want to. Operate within your faith. They can't make any laws. Government cannot make any laws concerning your faith. It gives you freedom of press. So all kinds of ways that's been, attacked in the context of that. Now they got this. You have CNN anchors editing people's speeches while they're interviewing them. Okay, I got a lot of things to cover, so I can't go in a lot of details, so we're going to cover them quickly. But the last thing a journalist would want to do is edit your speech. The whole point of sticking the mic in your face is to find out what you think and what you feel. We want to hear what's going on. And they're going like, we don't use that word anymore. It's like, you're the press. You don't tell people the words. So anyway, and now you're seeing also, the attacks on Christianity. This Christian Holocaust. You think about, of all the things that could be happened when people heard, hope and change and fundamental transformation, the last thing that the church thought would happen, that Christians will be being beheaded and raped and murdered and put into servitude. And in Oklahoma, a lady that I would, there's a probability maybe she would have voted for current leadership, that type of thing, but she had no idea that she would actually get her head cut off in the workplace from somebody who said that she would not. Reports are that he wanted them to convert to Islam, and they weren't going to convert. And if it wasn't for the man having a Second Amendment understanding, a gun in the workplace, he would have beheaded more employees
in America.
And nobody's talking about it. We're called Fort Hood. Workplace violence. A soldier shooting a soldier is sort of like your right lung shooting your left lung. That's a major event. When people in the same clothes, same uniform, same pledge, same constitution are attacking each other. That's a horrific event. And so we're seeing that happen. All of a sudden, the uniform is defamed, and we're trying to pull our troops out. And you're seeing the military where in Yemen, where they're saying, take the bullets out of your gun. Don't ride in a military vehicle when you leave here. Leave Yemen. And now Yemen's all in this whole. You're seeing this defamed, and then you're seeing, attacks, like I said, on the Christians in regards to, a lot of different things. But one is, we're telling you, you're going to have to kill your baby in your womb. If your employee decides that they want to kill their baby while it's still in their womb, you have to pay for that actually to take place. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's bad enough that it's happening, but now you're saying to this person who loves God, who loves their employee, who, by the way, who hired them, you didn't hire them. They pay you taxes based on their payroll. They show more love for that employee than you do. And now you're coming in and telling them that they have to pay to kill their child in their womb, pay for abortion. That's just an attack. That's all that's going on. There's more things of that nature. You see businesses being attacked, just like this. I'm telling you, this happened. It happened within 7-month time period in Germany. The very same thing started going on within 7 months. John, they went from everybody's doing business to Jews going, you don't do business with them. You tear their stores up. You boycott them. All these different things is happening right this moment. It's an urgency of now. And so then you're seeing law enforcement. There's no way. I mean, I'm talking to you as a former law enforcement officer. This country would not even exist on a day-to-day basis without officers who wake up every morning, every night, whenever they get, and they decide, she or he decides to continue to work in your community, decides to put on a uniform, which includes a bulletproof vest, to be able to go out there and for 8, 10, 12 hours to patrol around your house so you can sleep at night, to patrol around your business so people like, happened to Hitler don't come into your business right there. And they decide that. Well, now you see over and over again, it's being attacked.
Yeah.
The whole institution of law enforcement and the concept of law enforcement. In every aspect of society, there's people who are doing wrong things, but all of society is not wrong. But you're seeing specifically where you get people are losing their trust in the Constitution, their trust in Christian employers, their trust in Christian businesses, their trust in law enforcement. Well, a particular wife of a lieutenant says, my husband is so downcast now. He goes to work and everybody wants to fight him. Why? Because of the argument that's coming against the institutional concept of law enforcement. And in Baltimore, we see what's going on there, and you had a mayor saying, we're going to have curfew in 24 hours, but we're going to give time for those who want to destroy. And we talked about that on a previous program. But understand, that caused officers to have to stand in the street. And I was just talking to an officer yesterday and going like, that's like you standing in the street and people stoning you and the mayor not allowing you to go because you're caught by the mayor. The mayor determines what the police officers are going to do. They work for the mayor and the city council. And so they said, stand there. So big stones are being thrown at the permission
of the mayor. Yeah.
And by the way, that's your neighbor, it's your friend, it's your son, it's your husband, it's your daughter. I mean, officers are people who just choose to take that occupation to be there for us. And we saw in New Orleans, during the case of Hurricane Katrina, they can decide just to leave, and all of a sudden we're left to ourselves. And that's what would want to happen. So Al Sharpton, who was a CNN, news person, MSNBC, and one who allegedly the president calls in to be able to help and send out to Ferguson and different places. He was down there with an advisor, down in South Florida and different things of that nature. Well, he said specifically, that we need to federalize law enforcement. We need to basically get rid of. I'm paraphrasing.
What does that mean to federalize the law enforcement? What exactly would that look like?
That's what happened with Hitler. That's what they did. It was a federalized law enforcement, no longer having a police department who you determine who the mayor is going to be, who determines what those police officers are going to do for you or to you, or you vote in a sheriff, and the sheriff is so important who that person is. It's so important who you choose for your sheriff. So important. And it's so important for the sheriff to build relationships with the community that he or she is enforcing. But they're wanting to do it with the sheriff and the police. That's what the statement means. Yeah. And all of a sudden, now you have some federalized American police officer coming in with a tank or a gun or whatever. And
that's not accountable to the citizen.
That's Hitler. This is the whole thing that happened during the time of Germany. And it happened very quickly, too. And so Then you see the attack on that aspect of law enforcement. And now you're seeing also an attack on education. I mean, who ever thought that the answer to Georgia's teacher issue is to have 30 teachers arrested and shamed the whole education system in front of the whole world? There's a way probably to deal with that better than putting handcuffs on a teacher and on a principal. But you know what that did? The same thing as everything else. It caused everybody to look shamefully on education. It caused them to start categorizing, just like police officers, now are carrying this reputation, going like, people are going, you're like that officer I saw so and so, and now they're looking at teachers going, you're like that teacher I saw in Georgia. As a matter of fact, Houston, just this yesterday, I believe, a Houston principal at Westbury High School is reportedly being charged or going to be charged or being removed for fixing grades on this test, and they're just broadcasting this to bring shame on the very concept of, this is what they're saying. They're saying that we need to nationalize education. We need to nationalize
the police.
We need to nationalize rights. We need to give you the rights. Let's just listen. We need to, matter of fact, we just need a Führer. If we had a Führer, if we had a Führer, I don't agree with everything that he's saying or she's saying, but I know if we get close enough to listen, the urgency of now. We are talking, we're obviously not going to get everything in this program, so join us. We're going to continue this talk in our next program because it is the urgency of now. This is the urgency of now. But you look at, when it's this whole school, and the goal is of Lucifer and those who follow him, and those who want to harm our country, and those who want to harm things good, and who want to harm the Jews and want to harm the Christians. They have to first take what's good and make it seem bad. They got to take up and make it seem down. They got to take yes and make it seem no, because you have to buy into the thing. Even Hitler had to get people to vote for him. I mean, you think about it. Things just don't happen. You have to decide, do I want to go this way? And the urgency of now is saying, no, you don't want to go this way. They didn't know when they were following Hitler and electing him in, and he was doing these Führer type things, and he was doing this czar type stuff, and democracy was kind of new to them. They didn't realize that they would be in ovens, that they would be in camps, they would be in ghettos, that Christians would lose the Bible and Mein Kampf. He would write his own Bible, and he'd force people to have it. And that was right around the corner. It was rapidly right around the corner. And the enemy knows that he can only do that for a short period of time, and then all of a sudden, God will come in. So, you're looking at that. It would be a rapid destruction if we don't wake up. It's the urgency of now. And so you look at the First Amendment that is going on with education and with the schools. I mean, you look at the Second Amendment. I mean, with the school shootings, and all of a sudden it's tragedy. It's horrific. But the answer is not taking away guns. If they would have taken away the gun of the man that was in the supervisor in Oklahoma, more people would have been beheaded by this radical jihadist that was there doing jihad on his fellow employees after he had been fired. Can you imagine firing someone? And I have, had answered calls as a law enforcement officer where, somebody fired somebody and they came back that night with a gun to kill the person.
Wow.
They shot the person that fired them, and were, holding hostage type stuff. But you're looking at that's under attack. The family's under attack. And we're going to talk more about the family being under attack, and, marriage being under attack. And you got to hold on to what's right, because everything in you, just like the people of the day during, Hitler and there was going on, they really were thinking, because they didn't know. We have the benefits of looking at what happened after they did what they did. They didn't have that benefit. They didn't really know that this kind of evil existed. Even the people that were right by the camps, the concentration camps where they had, not just 6 million Jews, but a lot of people, over 11 million people he killed. Understand, they didn't even connect. And some of the things the Lord is showing us, I'm telling you, and I don't have it to be able to show you today. Maybe I will on the next program. But, Jonathan, part of the VFN Dream Center, God speaks to him and shows him that this is our future if we don't turn. Our future is that same concept where people aren't connecting to our suffering. If the goal is to do away with you, to remove you, to take you off of out of life and possibly even in your life, that has to be done in a way that people are just convinced that's just the best thing for our society. That it's couldn't be that bad what's going on in the camps. And it wasn't until after the soldiers came in and defeated Hitler and his troops did they walk to the camps and find out really what was going on. That's footage that you see today. But understand, that was a short period of reign, but it was a reign of terror. But it began with the church sleeping. They didn't understand the urgency of now. And Dietrich, they thought Dietrich done lost his mind. Dietrich, and he's realizing at some point, this ain't the church.
Wow.
This is not the church. The church is someone who's actually following Jesus Christ. The church is someone who doesn't partner with bad government. The church is someone, despite what happens to any government anywhere, that they stay loyal to the government of God and the kingdom of God. And so Dietrich tries to partner. He tries to get everybody together, and he tries to get the church together. And he was a person of influence, and he gets them together. And I'm going to talk more about this in our next program, so make sure you join us. But I want you to hear this right here, because you're looking at just amazing things that are happening. But so many bad things have happened and been discussed, and so many things have been discredited now that people just don't even feel the discrediting of the next thing, of the next thing, of the next thing, of the next thing. I mean, you think about all the actors that do all the terrible things in their movies, right? Just whatever in their movies. But you have one man that played a healthy father to a healthy wife, Claire Huxtable, who had a healthy family.
Right.
And they had to go after this father figure actor versus some, zombie eating somebody or something of that nature. But this is what it says, on page 61 in the Bonhoeffer autobiography. Hitler had rose to power. The church was needing to wake up the urgency of now and get unified. They were months away from persecution, from concentration camps, from chemical showers and ovens, months away from Hitler merging the church, or the church merging with Hitler, convinced that they could do what they said they could do.
Wow.
And he wanted to change the faith. And I want you to see this right here, 519. I want you to see this real quickly, because this is someone saying they want to lead our country, and she wants to change our deep-seated beliefs. Watch this.
And deep-seated cultural codes, religious beliefs, and structural biases have to be changed.
And so he was bringing everybody together, and this is what Hitler was saying. Hitler was saying that, we have to change this faith. We have to do it. This faith thing is going to, we got to minimize religion. And so this is what his quote is. Quote is, there were so many theological and political points of view in the opposition that they could never muster a single focused plan of resistance. They just couldn't resist anything the devil was doing. They could not unite. They could not come together. And this is my challenge to you. All we can do is what we can do together. Join with us. Listen, this ain't your father's Oldsmobile. Join with VFN TV. Stand with us. We are going to talk more about this in our next program, but we're not going to sit idly by. We're not going to stay silent. I mean, as long as we can speak, as long as we can act, as long as we can move, we are going to stand up in a loving way, in a kind way, but in a truthful way. I believe we're going to have an army of Dietrich Bonhoeffers that say, you're right, God. These things that are being discredited should not be discredited. These are things that you've given us. Not perfect. You're perfect, God. And with your grace, they can be in a place that you want them to be again. I want to challenge you. We're going to have to come together. There's something very specifically that the Moravians, who prayed for 100 years, interestingly, on a farm in Germany for 100 years, and they're part of the foundational concept of birthing a nation called the United States of America. And this is what we need to understand. In the essentials, unity. In the non-essentials, liberty. And in all things, love. We can come together. We can come together. This preference stuff, we just got to give people liberty with it. It's not that significant. What's significant is Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the blood shed on the cross of Christ, who forgives sins. The only way to God is through his Son. And we can begin to come together. We've got to come together. We cannot repeat the sins of those who have gone before us, as written about by Dietrich Bonhoeffer's life. We got to wake up. And I just want to challenge you. Join us for the rest of this talk in our next program right here on VFN TV. I want to pray with you. Father God, I thank you for Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his life, Father God. I thank you, Father God, for Eric Metaxas, Father God, that wrote this autobiography. And I pray, Lord, for each and every one that's watching, Lord, that you would stir their heart for the urgency of now, that we would shake ourselves and realize that the enemy's trying to discredit every single thing. And you said very specifically, Jesus, even a nation divided, even a family divided, everything divided will fall. Help us, God, to become united in Jesus Christ, to come united for your purposes, we pray. In Jesus' name. I want to challenge you right now. Go to VFNTV.com and stand. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. We need you to stand monthly, prayerfully, financially, partner. $1, $10, $1,000, whatever it is. It's time. We're going to have to do it. We're going to be focusing next program. You got to catch us because we're going to go over a detailed plan of what we're going to do and where we're going to go. We're talking about, the urgency of now. And this is kind of a continuation of that, and you can actually go and watch yesterday's program if you missed it, and I encourage you to turn on your DVRs and record. And it's like we were talking about in the last program. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. We are in a day and age that so many things are being divided and criticized and belittled. And it's like, these are very important things like your heart, your lungs, and the ability to think. And, these parts of our foundational things for our country. And that, if we're going to have a country, we're going to have to understand that Jesus said that a nation divided and a family divided will fall. So when somebody's dividing you and dividing different things, we have to wake up and say, what's going on?
Yeah.
And if you haven't yet got the book that was written by Eric Metaxas called Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy, and it's the righteous Gentile versus the Third Reich. Think about it.
Wow.
A righteous Gentile. This is a must read. You can see it on your screen. This is a must read for you. And because he did an excellent job. I've read a lot of things on Bonhoeffer, and people, they've done really well. And but the way he wrote it, he used Bonhoeffer's own letters, his own messages, his own sermons. So you're really understanding the heart of this man that God was using as a prophet. A prophet is somebody that's hearing what he or she can hear from the Lord and trying to deliver it the best they can. And he is definitely a prophet for this age. His words. He lived to be 49 years old, and the reason why he only made it to 49 is because the government hung him on a wall. They took a rope and hung him, killed him because of his stand and what he believed. And who was the leader at that time? Hitler was the leader at that time. And so how did Hitler get there? And we were talking about in the earlier program. He got there because he was elected. People actually decided that democracy wasn't their thing. The Weimar Republic that was going on at that time in Germany after World War I, they got rid of their czar-type king or their king, and a democracy came in, and they weren't used to all the challenging and participation, and they just thought it was just chaos and confusion. It's better just to have kind of one person kind of come in there and just lead everything. Not true. I mean, proven they had no idea what we know now by history. They had no idea what was going to happen the moment they put this person in. But they voted Hitler in, and Hitler began immediately to use propaganda. He began to use things that, by the way, reports are that he learned a lot of this from some of the American techniques of President Woodrow Wilson. Some of the reports are Goebbels, I believe.
Propaganda.
Propaganda. We read a law just recently, and you've got to see this talk called Law versus Morality to give you a viewpoint where propaganda is where you begin to say things to kind of change people's mind and that type of thing. And so here they were. The church was in Germany. You had this brand new person elected that they felt like he was going to, be there. He's going to provide jobs for them. Government's responsibility is not to provide jobs. They're supposed to help the people. And as the people provide jobs, when the government provides jobs, you think it's more like Joseph working for Potiphar. I mean, that's how it always kind of ends up. It doesn't end up that way because the government doesn't generate any money. They don't generate other than, getting speeding tickets or fines or something of that nature. They get it through taxes. And so if the more people that are on the government payroll, the more is taken from others. Sure. And slavery is nothing but a percentage of your tax rate. The definition of slavery really is you're 100% taxed. And I remember some comments saying, the tax rate probably needs to be at 100%. And people don't understand. That means it's slavery, by the way. When you all the money that you earn goes to the government and you just do your work, that's called slavery. And so anyway, so these things are going on. We talked progressively about these things in our previous program, how the first thing that started happening, the Constitution started being belittled. It's a list of negative rights, and it's kind of outdated. And besides, and all of a sudden we start talking about we need to put constitutional rights that go outside of what God would say. We need to say that, if God says up, we need to write in the Constitution that America now says down, and puts an opposite viewpoint of God in the Constitution. But when you look at the founding documents of our country, it's one nation under God, and that all of our rights come from God. And the second we start making laws that are outside of God's will, we're not going to have a country. I mean, it's not going to be able to be sustained. And it has been done. And we suffer greatly because of that. The greatest loss of life ever in the history of America was over the Civil War, but it was over immoral laws that actually enslaved part of the citizens of America. And but much bloodshed happened over that, and a whole journey began over that, of freedom that's still being marched out today in many aspects of it. But so understand this, so all of a sudden, why does someone begin to take what is right and call it wrong? Why does all of a sudden that the founding fathers are negative people, and that they begin to belittle, Thomas Jefferson, and belittle George Washington, and belittle, different leaders? Because that's the process. The process
Tear
is
down.
I got to target and focus, just like the Rules for Radicals. Saul Alinsky, the author of that book and the mentor reportedly of Hillary Clinton and President Barack Obama, by the way, you probably can see that on your screen, or will see that on your screen as I'm talking, that understand that he felt this is how you do 13 tactics. If you use these tactics, he says in his book, Lucifer used these tactics and he got his own kingdom out of it. I mean, he dedicates this book to Lucifer. So, but it's nothing but doing things outside of God's way. It's trying to make things happen. And I mean, children got this technique down. It happens in schools and the bully and that type of thing. So all of a sudden, since the Constitution is what you want to take down or begin to fundamentally transform, you got to begin to cause people to believe that the Constitution's bad. It's restraining. It's not loose enough. Our own Supreme Court justice told a country, I believe, down in Africa, that when you start to do your Constitution, don't use the American Constitution because ours is outdated. And her job is to be able to defend the Constitution and interpret it. Our own Supreme Court justice said that. Maybe it was in the Middle East when she was talking to maybe Egypt or someone. And it's like, what's going on? And it's like, because somebody believes that that's bad. We got to cause people to think it's bad. But this is what happened with Hitler. They really believed. They didn't have the benefit of knowing in a few months that people are going to be in ovens, that your business is going to be shut down, that the Bible is going to be replaced by Mein Kampf, by Hitler's Bible. All these things really happened. They really happened. And it happened quickly. And over 11 million people died after that decision. Over 11 million. And the whole world shifted. And we're still, limping from what happened over such evil, being made manifest. And so you start seeing the Constitution being belittled. Then you start seeing, education. And I mean, you could deal with things a little bit differently than taking 30 teachers and arresting them in Georgia and putting them on the news and cuffing them up and taking them away. But if you want us to disbelieve the education system, the local education system, and you want us to have nationalized education, and you want to have Common Core education system, you got to cause us to start believing that your system, Führer, is better than
what presently is, right?
What presently is. And so there's some things that are going on. He said, that's just too far-fetched. Well, no, what was believed is the church need to be minimalized. God's people need to be minimalized. The Christians and the Jews, that they're operating of these biblical principles, and we need to be able to change this thing. And they needed to change they needed to deep-seated religious beliefs.
Needed to be changed.
Yeah, that could never happen here, right?
Right.
Take a look at this. This is Hillary Clinton. She just said this a couple of weeks ago. It sounds so familiar. Watch this.
And deep-seated cultural codes, religious beliefs, and structural biases have to be changed.
I think cultural codes should be dealt with,
right?
But not deep-seated
religious beliefs.
That's what Hitler did. Listen, this nation stands because of God. Look at the papers. Read it. Read the Declaration of Independence, that we believe all of our rights came from God. God is the one that's over us. And understand, if we change that, we change everything. It's a whole new game. And so you see the education being assaulted. I mean, just yesterday, I believe, in Houston, or a day before yesterday, that they had a teacher arrested who changed the grades in a reading test. It's like, should we be making national news with a teacher who changed the grades? Why not just fire the teacher, or the principal, whoever it was?
Why shame them?
Well, the whole thing is you start feeling negative and I don't trust the school system anymore. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about not trusting law enforcement, and we're going to move on because there's so much more that we're saying, you know what? I got to quit buying into these reports. I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust that my rights come from God. I'm going to trust the Constitution. I'm going to trust our founding principles, and I'm going to trust God through this thing. You think about these things that are happening, and this urgency I'm feeling in my spirit it's just a now urgency. I mean, it's just now. I mean, you got to shake yourself till you realize now is not tomorrow. I mean, in a couple of weeks, I mean, how many people are like, yeah, this is so important. I'm going to put this on my calendar, and in the next 6 months, I'm going to get to it. The next 6 months, this country is going to be totally a different situation in the next 6 months. Now is the time. And if they would have responded to Dietrich, things would have turned. Hitler had to have a majority of people to buy into that and to fundamentally, change the...
What was.
And so you're looking at, but you got to get things that are good for people to start thinking it's bad. You think about the 50s. In the 50s, that the American women at that particular time, really, white women in the 50s, to be more specific, were living, like queens, and based on culture, the way culture is in the world. I'm not talking about just America. You can't compare everything by just America. But people would have given their right arm to live as the families lived in the 50s in America. They tried to flip the nation, with some techniques in the 60s, but they couldn't because the middle class was so strong. Everybody felt confident about what's going on. And Cloward and Piven, that technique of like, we got to crash the system. If we get everybody on the system and crash it, then we'll flip it and reboot it and be what it is. Crazy things that happened during that time, the Weather Underground, all that kind of stuff.
Billionaires.
And so, but they couldn't because people were satisfied. Things were good. So they had to begin to use propaganda to cause a woman and a man to feel like, you know what, this is kind of boring. This good home, good life. And, you're able just to enjoy life. And they began to just had to convince them that this was bad. So you have people, you have kids that have grown up with 2 generations of a blessed home who's on spring break from a $1 million home, marching down the street, complaining about what's going on. It's like, what are you doing? You're gonna blow. You are the 1%.
That's right.
You are the 1%.
So blow your cover, man. Get out of here.
But it's the propaganda causing people to feel disgruntled, And so you're seeing you have to say, wait a minute. I'm going to believe what God says. I'm going to believe what God did. God chose to raise this nation up, and God has sustained it. And I'm going to go with God. But so then you're looking at law enforcement now, and we talked about this. I'm not going to go into it in the previous program, but law enforcement, you're seeing, a narrative of law enforcement that's saying that law enforcement is bad, just like they're trying to make teachers look bad. And it's like education, law enforcement, Constitution, Christians, everything is just being, focused on. You cannot believe this press. It's not, listen, that's like saying your heart is saying to your lungs, what's your problem? You need to get out of here. When you lose that organ like that, you're not going to make it. And so it's very, very important. If you want to know what it looks like in a nation without law enforcement, look at Yemen. Look at Libya. Look at countries like that are just trying to make it, through those particular rough times right now. We need to keep them in our prayers. But then you're looking at the family. I mean, the family's under attack from everything. So much so that, you're looking at Focus on the Family. Dr. James Dobson, he just had to stop because it was such a huge attack on the family.
Wow.
And those are the reports are. And he wrote a book called Fatherless, and you got to read that, but it's just the ultimate end of the family. And it's just everything you can saw. Let's redefine family. Let's call family's evil. You feel guilty just for having a wife and a husband and children, and you're just saying, I'm okay with that, and I'm going to, and it's like, how can trusting my teacher be wrong? How can supporting my local law enforcement be wrong? How can being married to my wife and having my kids be wrong? And it's like, wait a minute, all this stuff is not wrong. They're trying to get you to think it's wrong. And so the people begin to criticize the fathers so much propaganda about fathers that being a father, being in a family and functioning in his role, he feels almost guilty about doing. There's something more I need to do. Right. It's like it's hard enough to do that. And so you think about, Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO, I believe, of Facebook. She has a book that she wrote called Lean In. I guess you could see it somewhere. And, our prayers go out to her. She had a tragic loss of her husband, just a sudden accident, and our thoughts go out to her. But in her book, she's talking about, that basically, the man needs to be seeing doing what traditionally women did versus going like, why do we have to put things in a role? Let's just live life together and function together. Why do men have to be emasculated for everybody to feel better? Because if you emasculate a man, you don't have a man anymore. If you emasculate a woman, you don't have femininity anymore. And it's like we're losing all this. You're fearfully and you're wonderfully made. Yeah. You're a beautiful person. Why would you believe the lie that you are not what God created you to be? I mean, think about that. And so all of a sudden people begin to believe the lies in that. So much so, the family is so much under attack. And we're talking about what was the days like right before Hitler, months away when Hitler began, he was in, but he began to progress with his plan, progressive thing. Mm-hmm. And the family, think about it. They got, and the only thing I've ever seen of this is actually of the commercial, and we actually have to turn our heads and flip the television off when you see it. I can imagine if people they're watching it all the time, I guess. But it's like people eating people. It's like zombies or something. Wow. And it's just you can't even watch a commercial. It's so bad. It was gruesome. And some of the prophetic words are that potentially could happen. But either way, it's like, and so if you're going to attack someone about this, with the press on somebody doing something negative to the culture of our community, I think it would be something like cannibalism and zombies or something. But instead, they attacked this one actor who acted like a healthy father in a healthy relationship with Claire Huxtable. Bill Cosby. They just totally ridiculed this man. He's an actor. He's an actor. But they had to go after that role. Why not go after the zombies eating each other or whatever? Why not do something of that nature? But this everything, and that was a beautiful sight of what a healthy family would look like with, Claire Huxtable and Dr. Huxtable and Heathcliff and the kids and living together as a family unit, and we all got a chance to really enjoy that acting that was going on, and it really encouraged the nation. And this thing is so significant. If you read, you've got to read this. This is almost identical to what Hitler knew he had to do. He had to change the way people think about the good things and the things that were, so he could enact the evil things. But they had no idea how evil was. Marriage. You look at marriage now. Marriage is under attack from every angle you can. Being married is difficult enough, but now people are trying to attack it. They're trying to come in and attack it. And you think about those who choose to live with the opposite sex and have children and raise them are reportedly or allegedly unkind, unthoughtful, unprogressive, old school. It's like, really? It's like, oh my goodness, isn't that how actually you were conceived? How you came to pass. You wouldn't even be here without that. Our Supreme Court is actually discussing matters since 1973, such as, I think we should kill the kid. Things that we thought were just unmentionable, historically, that though we sinned, we didn't talk openly about it, and we were ashamed of it, and we wanted God to forgive us of it. And now it's like, well, let's just, let's abort the child. Let's just kill the child and the baby. That was the argument in Roe versus Wade. Mm-hmm. They're talking about this in the Supreme Court. And of course, everybody sits back, I'm sure, going like, well, this will never pass. This will never pass. And it passed in 1973. And 55 million children that are reported, plus have been murdered since that.
Yeah, court case, sure.
Court case. And so you would even, who would ever thought that you would have a conversation about, can I murder my child in my womb? Who would have thought about that? The big thing was where women would want to have the child. But you had the sexual revolution. You had the freedom comes when you have freedom of the reproductive abilities, and all of a sudden, then you aren't going to control me anymore, because if I do get pregnant, I'll kill our child, and I won't even tell you about it. And it's like, where did that become a positive thing? How did that?
Yeah.
And how can you live with that? And I can understand God can forgive that, but understanding that is like, if you bought into that, now you're trying to walk out. That voice is coming against you, going like, I can't believe you did this. He would be 8 years old today. She'd be 12 years old today. I wonder if that kid over there would be like my kid. That was the devil. He was just selling you a bill of goods. And the things that are being discussed today, birth control being discussed before the Congress. And so you have a lady sitting testifying before the United States of America Congress, going like, I want to have as much sex as I possibly can have, and I want you to pay for the barrier that keeps me from the consequences of sex, which is children. And I'm like, are we having this conversation really? And we think it's normal. We actually think it's normal. It's like, how did we get into that conversation? And you think about this, and now today, this very moment, we're discussing at this very moment in the Supreme Court, should women marry women? Should men marry men? And some of the case that the attorney that's arguing against it quoted, the Supreme Court justice comes back and tells him, well, you have to understand you can't use that case because back when that case was, which was a couple years ago, this whole act of not marriage, but the act of them actually having sex was illegal. And so that whole case is thrown out. I'm like, are we talking about all of it? I was like,
wow.
What happened to the day that is like, we've all sinned, we've all fallen short, but why are we trying to legalize and come against every institution that actually holds a society up? Because you can tell I just got this sense of urgency, but it's the urgency of now. We have this tendency to say, man, that's so important. I'm going to get to this next week. You know what? I'll tell you what, spring comes up or summer or fall or like, it's the urgency of now. This is happening now. I'm hoping you understand that this is you, this is me, this is our nation being transformed before us. We have somebody running for office that's saying very specifically, listen to this, watch this. This is Hillary Clinton, what she's saying about our nation.
And deep-seated cultural codes, religious beliefs, and structural biases have to be changed.
Say that one more time. Do that one more time.
And deep-seated cultural codes, religious beliefs, and structural biases have to be changed.
If you read this book, if you read this autobiography, that is what Hitler thought the answer was. Dietrich Bonhoeffer is going, you can't change deep-seated religious beliefs. That's the reason why government exists. It wouldn't even exist outside of God. That you can't do that. And people didn't have the benefits of history, but we do now. We know exactly what happens when you start taking your faith and putting it aside and pulling God out of the equation, pulling commandments down. Even if you break the commandments, you want the commandments because at some point you may repent and come back to God. Yeah. But there's nowhere to go back to if you actually turn your entire nation away from God. You turn yourself away from God. You think, well, what's going on? What's going on with all this? And this, like I said, this is a continuation of our previous program. If you got to catch it, if you haven't, because it's got more foundation than what I talked about earlier. It's the simple rule. It's a simple rule that's been used since day one in war. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. Since the Garden of Eden, Satan's name is defined as one who gets in between and divides. What did he do? He got in between the most blessed people on the face of the earth, Adam and Eve, and he divided them from God. He didn't like it. He got in between them too. He began to talk in the ear of one of them. They bought into the narrative, did the Constitution really say that we have rights? Did the founding fathers really flee religious persecution to come over here? Did it really say don't eat the apple? Did it really say that this is marriage since the beginning of time? A man shall leave his parents and a wife shall cleave to her husband and they shall be one flesh and that kind of, did he really say all that? Did it really say that? Think about it. That's what's happening, right? All this questioning of all these founding type principles. And he divided them. Satan divided from the garden. Men were divided. And he got the authority. And that's what the Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, why he dedicates this book to him, because Satan, Lucifer, says because he got the, you probably can see the dedication maybe on your screen, I don't know. But he is the one who got his kingdom out of, is what they say. Because when Adam fell, the authority was given over on the earth to, it was given over to
Satan.
Yeah, to Satan at that point. And so then you think, well, what's going on with marriage? Well, marriage is to divide the husband and the wife. If you go in and you divide a husband and wife, you got a divorce. It's divide and conquer. If you keep on, at odds with your husband, you're not going to have one. If you keep on at odds with your wife, you're not going to have one. If you keep on at odds with your parents, you're not going to have a family. You'll have something. Everything divided against itself doesn't stand. If the government keeps on coming against family, guess what's going to happen? Divide and you conquer. Children divided from their parents, dividing and conquering it. Dividing the community from law enforcement. Trying to drive a wedge of doubt and unbelief and distrust. Men and women who every single day go out and choose to go out and defend you. Yes, some people, you got bad people in your office, but you still show up to work. Why? Because that was only a bad person. It wasn't everybody in your office.
Right.
You don't throw your company away because you hired a bad employee. You fire the bad employee. We don't say every officer is bad because one or two or a percentage. We deal with the problem that's there. And it's important. The fact that they choose to do that, the soldiers in the military that's going out to defend us, it's important. They're serving a very important role. And they're trying to divide us between our loyalty to we're not even taking care of them when they come back. They commit to fight for us and our freedom. They come back and we don't even take care of them with VA. We don't take care of them with jobs. And it's like they're trying to divide us even from those who fight for us. Dividing students from their teachers, right? All of a sudden now parents and students don't trust the teachers anymore. Why? Divide and conquer. If you buy into that, instead of getting up there and meeting with your teachers and meeting with your superintendent and begin to say, we got to build a relationship here, and your superintendent may go, that's just happened. It's an isolated case. You're more than welcome to come up here to the school and see how things are done. That is not true here at all. And you'll be surprised. That's the majority of everything in education that's going on right now. Don't buy into that. You're dividing Americans from Israel. I mean, think about it. These narratives saying, the Palestinian land, the Palestinian land, the Palestinian land. Give them part of Jordan. I mean, my goodness, you got 10 trillion acres out there. Israel's got like 60 miles wide at its widest point. But they're trying to convince everybody with a narrative to divide you from Israel. Divide and conquer. They want to divide the land of Israel. Why? Divide and conquer. When the president says the Middle East needs to be organized, this is what he's talking about. These techniques. You know what the Rules for Radicals says? One of the rules, he says you have to have a sustained militant effort to be able to cause these things to happen. Guess what? Based on the reports of some of our leading people, that this ISIS force could be stomped out instantly with our huge military. It could be dealt with. But if you go back and look at the progression since the empowering of the Muslim Brotherhood, putting on the front row at the Cairo speech at Cairo University when our president spoke there and said that he considers it his job to defend Islam from every negative stereotype, wherever it may be found, to today, for some reason, it's fueled the narrative and the not confronting it and not calling it what it is, and according to Congressman Michelle Bachmann, removing every form of related Islam as an enemy of America in some form or fashion. Radical Islam is an enemy of America, according to her. They purged it from our libraries, the FBI. And what's going on? You have to have a sustained militant effort to cause people to be uncomfortable enough to say, get Hitler in office. You have to have people to be so uncomfortable they go, yes, I guess we need to change our deep-seated religious beliefs. Maybe that's the answer. Because if you're comfortable and you're confident in God, you're not going to say that. But one of the rules and rules for radicals that our Saul Alinsky, who actually wrote this book, mentored, and on a previous program, I have a copy of the alleged term paper of Hillary Clinton. She corresponded personally with him, and the president was mentored by him in his system. And it's like, this is a technique. You have to have a sustained militant effort. And that's what it looks like to me, fitting right in line with, that's why radical jihad is just kind of fueling. And what's happening? Christians and Jews and people who aren't Muslim enough are being killed.
Suffering every day.
Now, see, that was happening with Hitler. And everybody went, overall, collectively,
Sure.
it's just going to be better off. Well, that's happening right now. We're winking at a journalist like James Foley getting his head cut off in front of us. In front of us. And we watch our leader pause to come off the golf course in Martha's Vineyard and then go back to play golf. That really happened. And it's like, what is happening? All of a sudden now is the narrative that human life is not important anymore? That reporters aren't important anymore? That Christians aren't? First, think about it. If we don't protect that journalist in the field, what we're saying is we don't want the truth reported. Some reports are right now, allegedly, that there is a lady right now they're not letting in the country who actually is a witness to all of this, and they're saying that she can't come in the country.
Wow.
Well, you're letting everybody else come in.
The thing that concerns what you're saying is that is there a tipping point? Is there a point where we respond? I mean, this is an urgent cry for us to take notice of. It's now to react. And I think about, about the Declaration of Independence, and think about what these brave men were able to do. At some point, they were sick and tired of having their rights violated. At some point, they were tired of the soldiers barging into their homes. Right. At some point, and they said, we have to change this. But what if it's too late? If we don't respond now, is it going to be too late?
Well, that's we're going to talk about this in the next part of our program today about, what are we going to do? We have a plan. We have a plan. There's something that we feel the Lord has given us to be able to be a part of what's happening. Dietrich Bonhoeffer cried out and called out and said, listen, but everybody was so divided that they couldn't unite. But you think about this, that even everything that you could possibly imagine now is being divided. Statements are being made by Al Sharpton, the MSNBC news reporter, one who allegedly our president goes to be able to send to different areas on behalf of his feelings towards these different areas that are going on in our country. And he says that, in a paraphrased way, that the policing needs to be federalized now. No more county deputies, no sheriffs, no police officers, no police chiefs, which you actually vote and you put in office and you fire, or you don't reelect or whatever. You don't want that your governor's over. That's what Al Sharpton was saying. And it's like that's where everything's kind of, and that's what hit. When did you see a nationalized police force? You saw it in Germany under Hitler. There's something we got to go back to the original intent. There's local. The more local your government is, the more accountable your government is to you. It's we the people. That's why it's they're supposed to be accountable to you. The further away you put the government, the least accountable it is to you as a government. And so you look at Dietrich Bonhoeffer's book, and you got to get this book. You think about it on page 161. He was telling everybody these things are coming. We're months away. We know now, months away from ovens and concentration camps and persecution of Christians. And you're seeing Christian businesses now. The same thing that was happening during those days. You're watching Christian businesses where they begin to have the boycott. They boycotted, Jewish businesses. The Night of Crystal Knot, we know we know
Broken
about.
glass.
And this is what he says in Eric Metaxas' book on Dietrich Bonhoeffer, pastor, martyr, prophet, spy, a righteous Gentile versus the Third Reich. This is what he says. He says, he tried to get everybody to get together because unity is so important, he said there were so many theological and political points of view in opposition that they could never muster a single focused plan of resistance to what was coming against their nation. In the parliament of the democracy of the Weimar Republic, they voted themselves to death. They actually voted their death in. They voted and said, forget us. Just let's bring in the Fuhrer. Let's just give Hitler. They voted themselves to death. And it's like, we have to wake up. All of a sudden, constitutional rights were suspended in Germany. Can you imagine that? You're holding on to a right, and all of a sudden it says, they're suspended. And these things begin to happen. And we have to focus. And we get back from the break, we're going to talk about, so what is the key? Listen, all this is being talked about in these two programs, but I have a plan. I have a plan, and I believe others do too. And we begin to follow the plans of God, the strategies of God. Our God can move. It's not over. We just can't believe the tyrannical narrative of the adversary who says he spews out venomous threats through his captives to be able to do his will. But our God is greater than that. But we have to wake up and say, dear God, we see it coming. What do you want us to do? When you look at, the Bonhoeffer autobiography, I'm telling you, you'll weep over this man's faith and his tenacity. And it literally was this one man who just stood up for what was right. And most of the people who professed to be Christians were actually merging with Hitler. And they who had a supremacist, anti-Semitic, if you're not, German, you're evil. If you don't follow my Christianity, you're not a Christian. And it's like, my goodness, we have to just wake up. And people wouldn't listen to Dietrich. They wouldn't listen to him. And if they just would have listened, if they just, but the fruit of his life, he's responsible for the reformation of the German church. And so, so you think about, what's going on? What do we need to do? One thing that is talked about in here, John, it was 7 months. It's business as usual. Mm-hmm. Hitler gets in, they vote him in. In 7 months, all of a sudden, they polarize the whole German nation to boycott, Jewish businesses. They begin to make people feel bad for doing businesses with them. They began to progressively close down Jewish presses and businesses and Jewish professors. They began to fire them. They got the university students to be able to go out and march down the street, begin to burn books by Jews and anybody that spoke anything out. This is Christians and Jews. We have to wake up. You have to understand that when evil is plotting, evil is plotting against us, against the Jews, against Christians, and we have to just wake up and understand. You see the surrounding today of Israel, surrounded by armies on every side. But the church is sleeping the way it was when they were surrounded in Germany. And it's like we have to understand, we're going to go the same way that Israel goes. That's where we're going to go. And I want to thank everybody that prayed, because Bibi got his united government. But it took 7 months to go from business as usual to all of a sudden nobody did business with the Jews anymore in Germany. All of a sudden they couldn't get educated anymore. They couldn't go to the schools anymore. They totally just pulled them out and said they were the problem. I mean, where would that even come from? The pits of hell. That's where that would come from. That's where that would come from. But guess what? At the same time, America was treating African Americans the same way. They were treating African Americans in a horrific way in our own country. Why? Because the same devil that was pushing Hitler to do that is the same devil that pushed racism in our nation. As Christians, that's not what we're called to. Love everybody and love the nations. So, I mean, it's evil. It's evil every way you look at it. And so, what is the plan? What do we do? Well, this is the Moravians were a people that just felt called to begin to pray. They prayed for 100 years. 100 years. And in that time of prayer, so many things were birthed out of it. But one of the things that was birthed out of that in Germany, by the way, is where they were praying, was an understanding about how to bring unity to people who love God, but have some preference differences, but they're not biblical foundational base differences. I mean, if it's sin to you, it's sin to you, but it's not necessarily sin to your brother. For example, your hair length, or some people don't drink caffeine, or somebody don't do this or don't do that. And the Word of God lets us know that, hey, that is to you, that would be sin, and you need to be honored in that. Nobody needs to dishonor you in that. In like manner, he talks about in the person who has a liberty that we don't say that they're in sin. We just we leave that to God. But this is what he said. The Moravians came out with this, and this is one of the foundational things that helped America come to pass. Some of the reports are that this one statement, and this is VFN Kingdom Business, is what we talk about all the time. The Lord's kingdom come this is it. In essentials, unity. In other words, Jesus is the Son of God. He's the only way to God. Without the shedding of blood, there's no forgiveness of sin. God offered his Son on a cross to sacrifice for our sins. That blood that came from Jesus is what takes away our sin and brings us in right relationship when we make him the Lord of our life. Because of him, we have eternal life with him. But the color you paint your building and the songs that you sing and the rhythm or no rhythm that you're using in your music, that's totally, a non-essential thing. So they said, in essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. and in all things, love. That is so important because remember, Dietrich tried to get everybody together and they couldn't get together, but they had no idea that they were months away and days away from businesses being closed, their kids being kicked out of school, them losing their jobs, being put into concentration camps. And God was sending a warning to this prophet, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, saying, listen, that ain't the church. If that's what they're going to do, if they're going to merge with Hitler, if they're going to sign the Aryan paragraph and think that they're going to manipulate their way, that's not how you do. You don't earn your way to God. We repent our way to God and say, God, I've sinned, I've fallen short. And we ask for God's guidance. And how we come together, how do we do that? We begin to say, you know what? And stick with VFN TV. Stick with us. Pray for us. Begin to become a partner financially. Cut a check. Go online. Go to VFNTV.com. And every single month say, this is how I'm doing. I'm standing with the Dietrich Bonhoeffers of this day. I'm going to stand up and say, we're going to do something about it. I'm not going to be that people who won't get along, who won't unify, who is sold out about saying, I got some political friends with Hitler's crew, and I think I can actually get in there. Hitler's Hitler. You say you can't. The people who have a mindset against God, when people are saying that you got to change the deep-seated religious beliefs of America, that is
hello
Hitler-esque, by the way. And so we got to be able to focus on the things that matter, this Judeo-Christian nation. And with that, we have the 7 spheres of culture, the 7 mountains that we'll be talking about. And each of these mountains, maybe you're in one, it's be the church or religion, family, education, government, arts and entertainment, media, and business. Bill Bright was just impressed by the Lord to understand that if you want to win a nation, and we're called to disciple nations, we got to go into these mountains, these spheres of culture, and we got to begin to make disciples in those mountains, be light in those mountains. We cannot turn them over to Hitler-esques and all those who want to do away with God being where our rights come from. We have to stand up for the Lord. He's waiting for us to stand up. And I believe, like we talked about in this previous program about minimum force necessary, listen, we can do it now. We can respond now. We can turn to God now. And I want to call you to prayer right now. Let's begin to pray. And I want to challenge you to stand. Let's stand together. Let God see us standing with him, saying, you know what? I'm going to prayerfully, I'm going to financially, and I'm going to attend, whether it's virtually or physically, in the studios of VFN TV, these 7 mountain meetings. We can do this in Jesus' name. Father God, I thank you. Well, we just call out for each of these mountains of our culture, Father God. We call out to the church mountain, God. We call out to the family mountain, the education mountain, the arts and entertainment, business and media, Father God. And each of these mountains in government, and we just say, grace to these mountains.
Yes, Lord.
Grace over these mountains, God. Lord, and I pray for unity around the essentials, God, and liberty around the non-essentials, and love and everything else, God. We ask you for this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Be sure to subscribe and press alert to get new notifications of new success secrets made available on VFN TV.
A lot of people want to abide with the Lord, but they just don't have a plan to do it. You can request that plan today at iabide.org.
I'm your host, Greg Lancaster, and we're so glad that you've joined us. Don't forget you can join us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download our app and sign up for our newsletter, The Torch, at vfnkb.com. I've enjoyed our time together. God bless.